Well, it's official, guys. They're calling President-elect Trump the second George Washington. Check this out.
When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations!
Now, of course, there's the whole resistance to the Matt Gaetz nomination as Attorney General. Well, Candace Owens just shared her take on it, and wow, was it mind-blowing. Here, watch.
Tried to paint Matt Gaetz like a complete crazy person. And you can imagine, remember, the adults are back in charge, right? That this was getting all of the coverage. This Trump ally, he's out here, he's doing this with a 17-year-old girl, and he fought through this. And it sounded like a conspiracy, right? To say that the Department of Justice is using former employees and liaising to try to siphon $25 million from your dad. But Matt Gaetz alleged that the local FBI instructed his dad to wear a wire to record the conversation with the person that was trying to extort them. And guess what? It turned out that Matt Gaetz was telling the truth. In August of 2022, so a little over a year and a half later, Stephen Alford was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a scheme to extort $25 million from the Gaetz family. So you can just imagine the Department of Justice's surprise. Oh my gosh, you're going to nominate now? He's in charge of the Department of Justice? You're going to make him the U.S. Attorney General? I love it. I love it, okay? He absolutely must be confirmed. And they're freaking out, and they're being honest about why they're freaking out. They're like, well, then he's going to have access to the files of when we were investigating him. And like, by the way, we didn't find anything, so it's not a big deal. But we don't want to, this is an insane pick. Why on earth would they allow him in? Yeah, because you realize that he is someone who you are not going to be able to flip into one of your allies because you attempted to ruin his life and to ruin his reputation. And these are exactly the kinds of picks that we need. I need someone who has a chip on their shoulder about the DOJ.
See, Candace Owens, she gets it. We voted for Trump. Let him get to work. And to people like Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell, they need to find a job that's not interfering with the president-elects. Now, as Candace Owens pointed out, though the Democrats and even some questionable Republicans are resisting Matt Gaetz' nomination, he's exactly the person that we need in the DOJ because he's someone you're not going to be able to flip into one of your allies because you attempted to ruin his life and to ruin his reputation. Someone with a chip on his shoulder about the DOJ and is going to do everything in his power to change the Justice Department for the better. Am I right, guys? So Matt Gaetz is such a smart pick because he's picking somebody who's like him. He's been on the other side of the DOJ's wrath. So he has the drive. He's got the motivation. He's got the inspiration to completely reform the DOJ for its corruption. The US DOJ extorted Matt Gaetz the same way they extorted President Trump. And you can tell that they're afraid of a Gaetz DOJ because now they're trying to discredit Matt Gaetz for something that he's categorically denying. It's one thing for the Democrats to do this, but now the swamp creatures in the Republican Party are also rearing their ugly heads and they're trying to roadblock Trump nominations. For one, there's former Vice President Mike Pence who's trying to fight RFK Jr.'s nomination. Watch.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's first vice president is weighing in on one of his cabinet appointments. Former Vice President and Indiana Governor Mike Pence says he's concerned with Robert F. Kennedy's appointment to run the Department of Health and Human Services. He calls Kennedy, quote, an abrupt departure from the Trump-Pence pro-life record. He goes on to say that he urges Senate Republicans to reject Kennedy's nomination and give the American people a leader who will respect the sanctity of life as HHS Secretary. Pence made these comments through a statement posted on his social media by his PAC Advancing American Freedom.
Now, don't forget, guys, Mike Pence is one of the reasons that we had to endure this mess of the Biden administration in the first place. Then you got Mitch McConnell, who in his last act as Senate Majority Leader seems to be resisting the Matt Gaetz nomination. I mean, here, just watch him squirm at the end of Trump nominating Matt Gaetz during Congress's recess.
Given how important the Attorney General nomination is, shouldn't senators have access to all the information, including everything the House Ethics Committee found in its investigation into him?
Look, the Constitution gives us a role in personnel called advice and consent. My view is that's exactly what will unfold here when these nominees are actually sent forward. And we would treat them like we've treated all others, with a proper vetting.
You were quoted over the weekend as saying there would be no recess appointments. Can you clarify what you said and what you meant?
Well, we'll see. I haven't addressed that issue.
In any capacity?
No, there have been all kinds of rumors floating around, but I haven't addressed that issue. We'll just see how this unfolds. We've got 6 weeks here, or actually 2 months.
Would you oppose any efforts to do recess appointments?
As a practical matter, do you think President Trump could actually force the Senate to take a recess? And what do you think about the idea of appointing some of these high-level cabinet positions during a recess and circumventing the Senate's advice and consent role?
Well, if you're asking basically the same question I just got, my answer remains, we'll see what happens between now and the new administration. And at that point, nominations can actually be sent forward. And we'll figure out how to handle them then. And I'm confident that we'll engage the same kind of vetting process that we have historically done under both parties for these nominees.
Mitch McConnell has the nerve to talk about proper vetting. I think he and his family need to be investigated. What do y'all think? Now, apparently, there's been a lot of talk about Mitch McConnell warning Trump's team that there will be no recess appointments. Florida Senator Rick Scott responded on social media. He said, yes, there will be. Utah Senator Mike Lee, he added, remember that time when Mitch McConnell decided that he wouldn't be speaking for Senate Republicans anymore? See, the deal is that Senate confirmations are passed with a simple majority vote, with the GOP on course to control the upper chamber with a 53 to 47 seat majority in the next congressional team. Each of Trump's picks cannot afford more than 3 Republican defectors. So now they've been mulling over this idea of Senate calling a recess because Trump would have the power to make appointments without having to go through the Senate confirmation process. And if these McConnell remarks prove to be true, then that means that the outgoing Senate Majority Leader is fighting this. So Nick Sorter, an independent journalist who regularly appears on right-wing news outlets and podcasts, he described it as Mitch McConnell once again proving he is not on the side of Americans. Too bad he's not in charge anymore. And honestly, why should the party even care about McConnell's say anyway? Jeremy Carl, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Interior during the first Trump administration, said that nobody now in Washington, including elected Democrats, have caused more lasting damage to the conservative cause than Mitch McConnell. CJ Pearson, a political commentator and co-chair of the GOP Youth Advisory Council, was pretty straightforward as well, saying that nobody gives a damn about what Mitch McConnell has to say anymore. And it sounds like Trump doesn't give a damn about the outgoing Senate Majority Leader either. Trump said on November 10th that Republicans seeking to be the next Senate leader must agree to recess appointments in order to get people confirmed in a timely manner. Sure enough, guys, South Dakota Senator John Thune, who was selected as the new GOP Senate leader to replace Mitch McConnell in January, has backed Trump's calls to allow him to get his administration picks confirmed quickly. As he said, all options are on the table to make that happen, including recess appointments. Same with House Speaker Mike Johnson. According to the Congress leader, the persons that the president is choosing will help with that agenda. They will take their leadership in these agencies and they'll reform them as the people expect and demand. And seriously, guys, Democrats and these questionable Republicans, they're making too big of a deal about this. Past presidents have used recess appointments, although President Joe Biden has not, and neither did Trump in his first term in office. Democrats' own President Barack Obama made 32 recess appointments. President Bill Clinton made 139, and President George W. Bush made 171. So what gives? What do you guys think? Is this just more Democratic shenanigans with a touch of rhino involvement? Honestly, the involvement of rhinos makes it feel like there's a shared interest overriding genuine representation of the voters. You know what I mean? Just drop a quick yes in the comments, guys. Hit the like button if you guys agree with what we're saying here, all right? Now, apart from that, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and tapping that notification bell for more updates like this one. Absolutely free. Plus, you'd be helping out the channel a lot. It's a win-win situation. So anyway, but let me tell you guys, they're really fighting this Trump administration with every fiber of their being. In fact, the latest update, close to 100 House Democrats signed a letter to the House Ethics Committee asking for the immediate release of its investigative report on former Florida Representative. In this report, there's all sorts of unproven allegations against Matt Gaetz, including sexual misconduct and bribery. Now, on the flip side of the coin, President-elect Donald Trump's Capitol Hill supporters are demanding that if a secret ethics report on Attorney General nominee Matt Gaetz is going to be released by Democrats, all sealed reports on wayward members and past scandals should be made public, including reports on Representative Eric Swalwell and Jeffrey Epstein's client list. Now, that would be interesting. Just go ahead and let the chips fall where they may, right? Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said on X, if they're going to release ethics reports and rip apart our own that Trump has appointed, then put it all out there for the American people to see. Let's see how the Democratic elites like that. And we could definitely be in for a very interesting turn, as some have even called on the release of sealed reports on the John F. Kennedy assassination, UFOs, even COVID-19. As Greene continued on X, all their sexual harassment and assault claims that they were secretly settled, paying off victims with taxpayer money, yeah, let all that hang out. The entire Epstein files, tapes, recordings, witness interviews. But not just those, there's more. According to the Congresswoman, Epstein wasn't and isn't the only asset. So she says, if we're gonna dance, let's all dance in the sunlight. And she'll make sure they do, she wrote. Hell, go ahead and let them Diddy tapes out so we can all see what was going on and which celebrities were on that list. How about that? Now, as for RFK Jr., some say it's the powerful healthcare industrial complex that's opposing his appointment. They're just terrified. I mean, we all know this, guys. Our country spends nearly twice as much on medical care per person than other wealthy countries, but our outcomes measured by life expectancy, infant mortality, unmanaged diabetes, and heart attack mortality were far worse. This is an industry that begs to be disrupted, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just the man for the job. I mean, he has been fearless in calling out the obvious failures of the status quo. One of his campaign themes, likely to find widespread support, is trying to combat the prevalence of chronic diseases and tackling obesity. The numbers bear it out too. Over 40% of Americans are obese, not only leading to poor qualities of life, but also contributing to our nation's out-of-control healthcare expenditures. In fact, an estimated 129 million people in our country have at least one chronic disease. I mean, you always hear about Biden bragging that he helped reduce the price of insulin for nearly 40 million Americans who suffer from type 2 diabetes. Why hasn't he talked up CDC guidance that says you may be able to manage your diabetes with healthy eating and being active, and try to get people off this insulin altogether? Biden, much like many of the elites, are afraid. Meanwhile, RFK Jr., together with other disruptor Trump appointees, which may be exactly what's needed to make America great and healthy again. What do you guys say? Like Sylvester Stallone Rocky said, when George Washington defended this country, he had no idea that he was going to be changing the world. But without him, you could imagine what the world would look like. And in Trump, we're being told that we found the second George Washington. He also talked about his movie character Rocky. He said that he was a chosen person, that this man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives. He said that we're in the presence of a really mythical character and that nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off. So who are we to question his political appointees, right? Or more precisely, who are Mitch McConnell and Pence? And you know what Trump said after he was asked about reconsidering the Matt Gaetz nomination after the launch of a rocket by Elon Musk's SpaceX in Texas? He just said a flat out no. He didn't exactly say how far he was willing to go to get Gaetz confirmed, but like I've been saying since the start of this campaign, never underestimate Trump. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Drop a quick comment down below, light up the like button to show your support, and if you haven't yet, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and tapping that notification bell, guys. That way you don't miss out on any of our updates as we're getting closer and closer to Trump's inauguration in January 20th. Very exciting stuff, guys. Now, speaking of, don't forget to check out our other videos on the channel. We just uploaded a fresh video talking about Biden's going full MAGA, Joe smiling with Trump, and Jill giving Kamala Harris the cold shoulder. Definitely check that video out after this one. As always, thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.